The cameras flashed, the crowd buzzed, and Keanu Reeves walked hand in hand with Alexandra Grant. It was supposed to be just another public event, another night where the world admired their quiet bond. But then something unusual happened. When reporters asked them to pose closer, to embrace like every other couple on the carpet, Alexandra gently pulled her hand away and refused to touch him. The world froze in confusion. Whispers filled the air. People wondered if it was rejection, a secret fight, or the end of their love. Keanu stood calm, his face steady, but his heart ached in silence. Alexandra's refusal was not coldness. It was something much deeper, something the flashing cameras could never understand. In that moment, the world saw distance, but what lay beneath was a story of respect, hidden pain, and a love tested by forces far stronger than gossip. The night ended with headlines spreading like wildfire. Why did Alexandra refuse to touch Keanu? The media twisted the moment into scandal, painting pictures of betrayal or loss. Fans argued endlessly, some defending Alexandra's independence, others questioning the strength of their bond. But behind the noise, Keanu sat quietly in his home, replaying the scene in his mind. Alexandra's eyes had told him something the cameras missed. Her refusal was not rejection of him, it was protection. 2 days before that event, Alexandra had received a letter. It was slipped under her gallery door, hidden among packages. The handwriting was sharp, almost angry. Inside, the message was short. If you love him, don't touch him in public. Every time you do, he suffers more than you know. Alexandra's hands had trembled as she read it. She had not told Keanu yet, afraid of adding another burden to the weight he already carried. Keanu Reeves was known worldwide as the humble actor who chose respect and kindness over fame. He gave away his seat on trains. He spoke softly to strangers, and he carried his grief quietly. The world admired his gentleness, but Alexandra knew the truth. The same humility that made him loved also made him vulnerable. His heart was scarred by past losses, and he had always lived with the belief that if people around him suffered, it was his fault. Alexandra refused to feed that pain. So when the letter threatened him through her, she chose silence. She chose to pull her hand away, hoping the world would misunderstand her, but he would remain safe. But Keanu was not blind. He had felt the sudden tension in her fingers that night, the way her eyes darted nervously around the crowd. He knew Alexandra was hiding something, and the thought pierced him deeper than any headline could. He trusted her completely, but the distance scared him. When she refused to touch him, he didn't feel anger. He felt fear. Fear that she was protecting him from something he could not yet see. That night, as they sat together at home, the silence between them grew heavy. Alexandra poured tea, her hands still trembling. Keanu watched her closely, his voice soft but firm. "Why did you pull away tonight?" Alexandra froze. She had rehearsed answers in her mind. Excuses about nerves, about the crowd, about needing space. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw the same honesty that had always defined him. She could not lie. She set the cup down and whispered, "Someone wants to hurt you, and they think they can reach you through me." Keanu's heart sank. His first instinct was not anger but sadness. Sadness that the woman he loved had carried this weight alone for even a moment. "You should have told me," he said gently. Alexandra shook her head. "You've carried too much already. I didn't want to add more." Her voice cracked, tears forming in her eyes. Keanu leaned closer, his voice low but steady. "Love doesn't mean hiding pain. Love means carrying it together." His words broke the wall inside her. She reached for the letter and placed it in his hand. He read the sharp words, his expression calm but his heart burning. He folded the letter and looked at her with quiet determination. "They want fear," he said softly. "But we will give them truth. Together." Alexandra's tears fell as she realized he was not shaken. The man who had endured loss, who had faced grief with dignity, was now choosing to face this new shadow not with anger, but with resilience. But deep inside, Keanu knew this letter was only the beginning, and the refusal that shocked the world was not just a single act. It was the first sign of a storm waiting to break. The morning after Alexandra confessed about the letter, Keanu sat quietly by the window, holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The city outside was waking up, but inside their home, silence ruled. He replayed her words over and over in his mind. "If you love him, don't touch him in public. Every time you do, he suffers more than you know." It was cruel, but what haunted him most was not the message itself. It was the fear that someone was watching, Someone close enough to know their lives. Alexandra joined him, her face pale from lack of sleep. She sat beside him without speaking, until finally Keanu placed the cold cup on the table and turned to her. "We can't ignore this," he said softly. "If we pretend it doesn't matter, they win. Fear will control us. I can't let that happen to you, Alexandra." Her eyes welled with tears and she shook her head. "But I don't want you to carry more pain. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I took the weight myself, maybe it would pass." Keanu's voice was steady but full of emotion. "That's not how love works. You don't carry it alone. We share it even when it's heavy." His words eased her heart, but the fear remained. Later that day, another envelope arrived. It was slipped under their door, just like the first. Alexandra's hands trembled as she picked it up, but Keanu took it from her gently. "This time I'll open it," he said. Inside was a photo. It showed the two of them walking together weeks ago, unaware of a camera hidden in the shadows. Scrawled across the bottom in bold black ink were the words, "Do you still think the world is safe when you stand beside him?" Alexandra's breath caught in her throat. Keanu studied the photo, his face unreadable but his heart clenched. Someone was watching them closely, following them in their most ordinary moments. This was no random act, it was personal. That night, Keanu called an old friend, Michael, a man he trusted like a brother. Michael had once worked in private security, and his quiet strength made him someone Keanu could depend on. When Michael arrived, he examined the letters carefully, then looked at both of them. "This isn't a prank," he said firmly. "This is someone with intent, someone who wants power over you. They know your routines. They want Alexandra to distance herself from you in public. The question is why?" Keanu leaned back, his hands pressed together.
"Maybe it's not about me," he said softly.
"Maybe it's about what I stand for. I've spent years living with humility, showing kindness, trying to remind people that fame doesn't make you better. Maybe that threatens someone who wants me to be seen differently." Alexandra touched his hand, her voice trembling. "But what if it's someone closer? Someone who knows us?" Michael advised caution. "We'll set up protection," he said. "But you must be careful in public. If they see fear, they'll push harder." Alexandra nodded, but Keanu remained still. His mind was not on fear, it was on resilience. He had faced grief, loneliness, and loss that most people could not imagine. This new shadow was frightening, yes, but it was also a test. Would he let fear control him? Or would he rise above it just as he had always tried to do? 2 days later, Alexandra prepared for an art event. She hesitated at the door, unsure if she should attend. Keanu noticed and smiled gently. "Don't let them steal your life," he told her. "Your art is your truth. If you stop now, they win." His words gave her strength and she went, though her heart was heavy. While she was gone, Keanu received another message. This time it was not a letter but a text on his phone. The number was hidden, the message short. "She is safer without you." His chest tightened, but instead of panic, he felt a deep calm. He refused to let threats define the love he had built. He replied with a single word: "No." When Alexandra returned that evening, he didn't tell her about the text. Instead, he welcomed her with tea and listened as she spoke about her gallery. He wanted her to feel light, even if his own heart carried shadows. But Alexandra noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile did not fully reach his eyes. She placed her hand on his and whispered, "Don't protect me by hiding things. Let me stand with you." Her voice trembled, but it was filled with strength. Keanu looked at her with quiet admiration. She had always been his equal, his anchor, his reminder that love was not weakness but power. Together, they sat in silence as night fell. Alexandra leaned against him, and Keanu felt the weight of the world pressing in, but also the warmth of the one person who refused to let him face it alone. Yet as peaceful as the moment seemed, he knew more was coming. Whoever was behind the threats had only just begun. The storm began quietly, like a whisper that turned into thunder. Days passed after the text, and though no new letters came, both Keanu and Alexandra felt the tension around them grow thicker. Every time they stepped outside, every time cameras flashed, Alexandra hesitated. Her hand hovered near his but stopped short, afraid that even a touch might bring more danger. The world noticed. Headlines screamed, "Alexandra Grant keeps distance from Keanu Reeves again." Fans speculated wildly, imagining betrayal, heartbreak, or hidden fights. Keanu remained calm in public, his smile gentle, his demeanor humble, but inside he felt the sting. The distance was not born of lack of love, it was born of fear. And that fear was spreading like poison. Michael, the trusted friend who had taken on their case, called one evening with urgency. "I traced the phones," he said. The prepaid numbers came from a small shop near downtown. The same person bought 3 of them over a month. The shop owner remembers a man, tall, dark coat, always wearing sunglasses, never spoke much. He paid cash. I checked security cameras, but the face is blurred. Whoever this is, they know how to hide. Keanu listened, his jaw tight. Alexandra stood nearby, her hand pressed to her lips. Michael's voice lowered. "But there's more. I think this person isn't just following you now. I think they've been watching you for years." Those words chilled the air. Alexandra's breath caught and Keanu's eyes grew darker. "Why?" Alexandra whispered. Michael sighed. "I don't know yet. But they're patient, careful, and they believe they own a piece of your story." That night, Keanu and Alexandra sat on the couch together, the letter and photo spread out before them. Alexandra's voice cracked as she spoke. "I feel like we're trapped. If I touch you, they threaten. If I don't, the world thinks we're falling apart. How do we live like this?" Keanu reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. He squeezed it gently. "We live as we always have," he said softly. "With respect, with kindness, with resilience. We don't let shadows steal that from us," but even as he said those words, another knock came at the door. Alexandra flinched. Keanu rose slowly, his heart pounding. When he opened it, no one stood there. Only a small box wrapped in plain paper. He carried it inside, carefully opening it. Inside was a single object. A porcelain doll with its hands painted red. Tucked beside it was another note. "Every touch leaves blood." "Stop before it's too late," Alexandra gasped, her face pale. Keanu stared at the doll, his mind racing. This was no longer just a warning. This was a message of control. A twisted attempt to turn their love into guilt. The following day, Alexandra tried to distract herself with her art, throwing herself into painting. But even in her studio, she felt eyes watching her. She checked the windows twice, 3 times, but saw nothing. Yet the unease clung to her. When Keanu came to pick her up, she broke down in his arms. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't live under their eyes." Keanu held her tightly, his voice steady even as his heart broke. "Then we fight back. Not with anger. Not with fear. With truth." The next evening, Michael brought new information. He had tracked old files, dug through archives, and found a strange connection. Years ago, during the height of Keanu's career, a small group had tried to sell false stories about him. Stories that painted him as selfish, cruel, even violent. None of it was true. But the rumors had briefly surfaced before fading. Michael believed one of those people had never let go, still bitter, still determined to tear him down. Alexandra listened in silence, her hands clenched. Keanu simply nodded. "Then this isn't about us," he said softly. "It's about their obsession." Yet that night, as Keanu prepared tea for Alexandra, his phone buzzed again. Another message, this one darker than before. "I warned her not to touch you. If she does again, the world will bleed with the truth I hold." Keanu set the phone down, his chest heavy. Alexandra walked in, saw his face, and asked what was wrong. He hesitated, then handed her the phone. She read the message and her body stiffened. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she lifted her head, her eyes blazing. "Let them try," she said. "I will not let fear dictate how I love you." Keanu looked at her, a small, proud smile tugging at his lips. The woman who had pulled her hand away in fear was now standing fierce beside him. But as his heart swelled with love, he knew the danger was still real. Someone was out there, watching, waiting, ready to unleash secrets from his past that could shatter everything. The air inside their home grew heavier with each passing day. Alexandra no longer slept peacefully. Every sound at night startled her awake. Every ring of the phone made her heart pound. Keanu tried to remain calm, his quiet strength never fading, but even he felt the walls closing in. The threats had shifted from warnings to direct attacks on their love. Whoever was behind it wanted more than fear. They wanted control. One evening, Michael returned with new evidence. He spread papers and photographs across the dining table. "I found something," he said, his voice low. "The man who bought those phones also used a credit card once, just once. I traced it. The name doesn't matter as much as what connects him to you, Keanu. He was part of that group years ago, the one that tried to smear your name. But while others moved on, he didn't. He blamed you for his failures. He lost his job, his career collapsed, and in his bitterness, he made you the villain of his story." Alexandra leaned forward, her eyes wide. So all of this, every letter, every threat, it's because he thinks destroying you will heal his own pain? Michael nodded grimly. People consumed by anger often twist their suffering into revenge. Keanu sat silently, his gaze steady on the papers. For a long time he said nothing. Then he spoke softly. He thinks he can control how the world sees me, but I've never lived for the world's opinion. I've only tried to live with kindness. If he wants to tear that down, I will face him, but not with hate. Michael frowned. You're talking about confronting him? Keanu nodded. Alexandra gripped his hand tightly. That's dangerous, she whispered. Keanu turned to her, his expression calm but firm. Danger isn't new to me. I've faced grief, I've faced loss, but hiding from this will only give him more power. If we stand in truth, he cannot win. The confrontation came sooner than expected. 2 nights later, as Keanu and Alexandra left a quiet restaurant, a figure stepped from the shadows. Tall, lean, his face partially hidden beneath a cap. Alexandra froze, her heart hammering. Michael, who had followed at a distance for protection, moved closer, but Keanu raised his hand gently, signaling him to wait. The man's voice was sharp, almost trembling with years of bottled rage. You don't deserve their love. You don't deserve her hand in yours. They should see the real you, the broken, the guilty, the man who couldn't save the ones he lost. Alexandra gasped softly, her grip tightening around Keanu's arm. But Keanu did not raise his voice. He stepped closer, his eyes filled not with anger but with sorrow. You think my kindness is a mask, he said quietly. You think my silence is weakness. But the truth is, I have lived with pain you cannot measure. I have lost people I loved. I have carried grief that nearly destroyed me. And still I chose to live with respect, with humility, with resilience. That doesn't make me false. It makes me human. The man's hands shook, his voice breaking. Then why did you rise while I fell? Why does the world worship you and forget me? Keanu's voice softened further, carrying the weight of honesty. Because I didn't let bitterness be my story. I let love be my anchor, even when I was drowning. You let hate consume you, and hate only destroys. The silence that followed was heavy. Alexandra's eyes brimmed with tears, not from fear, but from the raw truth Keanu had spoken. Michael moved in cautiously, but the man turned and fled into the darkness before he could be stopped. Later that night, back in the safety of their home, Alexandra sat beside Keanu on the couch, her body still trembling. You could have been hurt, she whispered. You stood there unprotected. Keanu looked at her gently, his hand brushing hers. I wasn't unprotected. You were with me. And truth was with me. That's enough. But Alexandra could not shake the fear.
What if he comes back?
What if he doesn't stop? Keanu leaned closer, pressing his forehead to hers. Then we face him again. Not with fear, not with anger. We face him with the same strength that has carried us this far. Resilience, kindness, and love. His words steadied her heart, but she knew the battle was not over. This man was not finished. He had fled, but his obsession burned too deeply to end so quickly, and Keanu understood it too. As he sat in the quiet with Alexandra's hand in his, he knew the confrontation had only peeled back the first layer. The true test was still ahead. The world still watched, misunderstanding Alexandra's distance, twisting their love into scandal. But the greatest storm was not outside. It was the shadow of a broken soul determined to drag them both into darkness. The days after the confrontation were heavy with silence. Alexandra tried to work in her studio, but her brushstrokes carried the weight of fear. Keanu kept his schedule quiet, avoiding public events, yet the world still watched. Every photo of them together sparked new rumors. Fans whispered that Alexandra's distance meant trouble, while others insisted her love was stronger than ever. But behind the noise, a deeper truth lingered. The stalker had not been caught, and his obsession was not finished. On the 3rd day, another message arrived. This time it was not left at their door or sent as a text. It came as a package delivered directly to Alexandra's gallery. When she opened it, her breath caught. Inside was a stack of photographs, old, grainy pictures of Keanu in his most private moments. Some showed him grieving at a graveside, some walking alone late at night, his face etched with sorrow. Scrawled across the top of the pile were the words, "Show the world. Remind them he is broken." Alexandra's hands shook as she stared at the photos. She knew this was no longer just about threats. It was about control. The stalker wanted to force Keanu's grief into the spotlight, to twist his humanity into weakness. She rushed home, tears streaming, and placed the photos on the table before Keanu. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He wants to drag your pain into the light. He wants to destroy everything we've built." Keanu studied the photographs quietly. His face was calm, but inside his heart ached. Those were moments he had kept private. Moments where he had let his guard fall because he thought no one was watching. Seeing them exposed felt like a violation. Alexandra touched his arm, her voice trembling. "We can't let him win." "But how do we stop him?" Michael, who had been investigating day and night, gave them his advice. "We could go to the police. We could push for protection. But he is clever. He will slip away again. The only real way to break his control is to take away what he wants most, the power to expose you." Keanu looked at Michael, then at Alexandra, then back at the photographs. He understood. The stalker's weapon was secrecy. The way to disarm him was through truth. But the idea terrified Alexandra. "You're saying, tell the world?" she asked softly. Michael nodded. "If you tell your story in your own words, his threats lose meaning. The truth will belong to you, not him." That night, Keanu and Alexandra sat together in their living room, the glow of a single lamp surrounding them. Alexandra's voice broke as she spoke. "I don't want you to relive your pain in front of millions. It's yours, sacred, private." Keanu took her hand, his eyes gentle but firm. "It has always been mine, yes? But maybe sharing it can turn it into something more. Maybe it can be light for others who carry the same weight. If my silence gives him power, then my voice will take it back." The decision was made. Keanu would speak. Not to tabloids, not through leaks, but in his own way. Alexandra stood by him as he arranged a live broadcast. A rare moment where the world could see him not as an actor, but as a man. The announcement sent shockwaves across media. Keanu Reeves to break silence in live address. Headlines exploded. Fans braced for scandal. But what they would receive was something very different. The night of the broadcast, the world tuned in. Millions of screens lit up. The chat filled with endless comments, hearts, and speculation. Keanu sat calmly in front of the camera. Alexandra just outside the frame, her presence steady. He looked down for a moment, then lifted his eyes and began to speak. "For many years, people have called me kind, humble, quiet. But behind every smile is a story. Behind every gesture of kindness is a choice I made even when my heart was heavy. I have carried grief that nearly broke me. I have lost people I loved deeply. I have walked through nights of silence that felt endless. And still, I chose to move forward with respect, humility, and kindness. Not because I am perfect, but because I believe pain should not turn us cruel." The room was silent except for his voice. His words reached millions, but they also reached Alexandra, who wept softly behind the camera. He continued, "Someone has tried to use my grief against me, to turn my humanity into weakness. But I want the world to know. My scars are not shame. They are proof that I survived. And if you carry scars too, you are not alone." Tears filled the comments section. Messages of support poured in. Fans shared their own stories of loss and resilience. What had begun as a threat was transforming into hope. But just as Keanu finished his words, Michael received a notification. Another message from the stalker. "This one darker than all before. You think you've won. But you still don't see what you lost. I will remind you." The victory of the night turned heavy. Alexandra's face drained of color when Michael showed her the message. Keanu, still on camera, ended with a small, tired smile. "Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding." He clicked off the broadcast, unaware that a new storm had already begun. The night after Keanu's broadcast should have been peaceful. The world had embraced his words. Millions had praised his honesty, and for a brief moment Alexandra thought the storm was over. But the new message from the stalker echoed in her mind. "You think you've won, but you still don't see what you lost. I will remind you." Those words carried a threat not only to Keanu's peace, but also to the fragile love they had fought to protect. For 2 days, nothing happened. The silence was almost worse than the letters. Alexandra found herself jumping at every sound, staring out the window, searching shadows for movement. Keanu tried to comfort her, reminding her that fear was the enemy's weapon, but even he felt the unease deep in his chest. Michael stayed close, checking their security, tracing signals, searching for the stalker's hiding place. But the man seemed to vanish like smoke. Then on the third night, the silence broke. Alexandra returned to her gallery after hours to collect a forgotten sketchbook. The building was empty, the air still. But when she entered her studio, her breath caught. On the center table lay another box, larger than before. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a framed photo of Keanu, Years old, taken on a movie set. Across the glass in red paint were the words, "He belongs to grief, not to you." Alexandra staggered back, tears burning her eyes. She knew the stalker's obsession had reached a dangerous peak. She called Keanu immediately, her voice trembling. "He was here," she whispered. "He left me a message." Keanu's heart pounded as he rushed to her, Michael close behind. When Keanu arrived, he found Alexandra pale but strong, standing beside the painted frame. He took it in his hands, his expression unreadable. For a long time he said nothing. Then he placed the frame down carefully and looked at her. "He wants to break us apart," he said softly. "He wants me chained to the past. But grief is not a prison. It is a part of me, yes, but it does not own me, and it does not erase the love I have now." Those words gave Alexandra strength. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Then we end this," she said. Michael finally traced the signal of the stalker's phone to a small motel outside the city. Against Alexandra's wishes, Keanu insisted on going with him. "If I don't face him, it will never end," he said firmly. Alexandra begged to come, but Keanu kissed her forehead gently. "You've carried enough. Let me do this." The meeting was tense. Michael and Keanu entered the motel room quietly, finding the stalker hunched over a desk cluttered with photographs, letters, and notes about Keanu's life. Walls were covered with images, movie posters, candid shots, articles, even drawings. It was obsession painted across every surface. The stalker spun around, his face wild with bitterness. "You don't belong with her," he spat. "You belong to the pain. It made you who you are. Without it, you are nothing, and I won't let her steal that from you." Keanu stepped forward, his eyes calm, his voice steady. "Pain shaped me, yes. Grief taught me lessons no one should ever have to learn, but I am not defined by it. I choose to live with kindness. I choose to love Alexandra. That doesn't erase my losses. It honors them. Because every act of love, every moment of respect is proof that grief didn't win." The stalker trembled, his fury breaking into tears. For a moment, he looked less like an enemy and more like a man consumed by his own demons. Michael called the police, and soon the stalker was taken away. As the door closed behind him, Keanu stood in silence, his heart heavy but unbroken. When he returned home to Alexandra, she ran into his arms. For the first time in weeks, she held him tightly, without hesitation, without fear. "It's over," she whispered. Keanu stroked her hair gently. "No," he said softly. "Grief never ends. But love is stronger, and as long as we choose it, no one can take it from us." The following weeks brought peace. The media slowly moved on. Fans continued to show support, and the letters stopped. Alexandra touched his hand in public without fear, and the world saw not scandal but devotion. Keanu knew shadows would always exist, but he also knew the truth. He did not have to face them alone. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Keanu and Alexandra sat quietly on their balcony. The world below was busy and loud, but in that small space there was only stillness. Alexandra leaned her head on his shoulder. "Why do you always choose kindness even after everything?" she asked softly. Keanu smiled, a true smile that reached his eyes. "Because kindness is the one thing grief cannot steal. It's what makes us human. It's what keeps love alive." Alexandra closed her eyes, holding his hand, and for the first time in a long while she felt safe.